Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother asarimhotep with the Madhu Mandela Institute for the Advancement of Science and Culture. And today is Friday, September the 11th. And this is the Devil's Advocate Show. And the topic for discussion, or I should say the question is, does Mary, Mother of Jesus, have a valid Me Too claim against God? More to come when we come back. Peace and blessings again. Thank you all for joining this conversation. And this is another episode of The Devil's Advocate, where I take the position that is contrary to most positions that you would expect on any given subject. And so these are designed to be open discussions. So, if you have a comment or, just something on the topic itself, something in contrary to what is being said or in favor of what's being said, you can join the conversation. And so for those of you who are in the chat, the live link, to join the panel has been added for both Facebook on the Asar Imhotep page and on the YouTube chat. So if you want to join the discussion, you aren't afraid of the controversy, come join this discussion. So, the topic of this discussion was, kind of brought up based on the last conversation that we had on, that the Abrahamic traditions, make God look weak. And so the underlying focus was on, how men create religions, but then try to pass it off as if they were getting direct information from the creator or some spirit or whatnot. And the little context clues that you can tell that these were in fact written by men, and men who may have not thought very thoroughly or very deeply, into the subject matter. So in that conversation, I had asked this question, which became the title of today's discussion. And so, does Mary, the mother of Jesus, have a valid Me Too claim against God of the Bible? And so what we will do is go and read, one of these sections that talks about the birth of Jesus, and we'll just kind of go from there. And so before I delve into that aspect of the conversation, as always, I like to shout out everyone who makes themselves known in the chat room. So peace and blessings to Conan Lee across the waters in the UK, Althea Lasha, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Peace and blessings to you, Sister Tamika, Harold Richardson, the Brothers UK, Destro 0861, Sister Ladasha Wright, Don Williams, Non-Swirl Zone, Outside the Cube, Law Ski, Everything is Everything, D, Centavo, and Paul Netter, and Dion Florence. Peace and blessings to all of you, and thank you for joining this conversation. So as I said, this is an open conversation. So it's not meant for me to be, just it's not a presentation like one of my normal presentations. This is just simply an open conversation because I want to have dialogues with the community. But I'm going to let me just search, because they got the whole Bible on the net nowadays. I don't have to open my Bible like back in the day when I was a Hebrew Israelite. And it was like, read. And then, you open and then you would read in your loud voice. So I'm going to look up Luke. What is it? Chapter 1. Luke chapter 1. So what comes up? I'm going to go to Bible Gateway. And this is the NIV version. And Sister Tamika says that she could never get into the New Testament stories. So if I understand, I think you are an adherent to the biblical tradition, and it sounds like you may be an Old Testament person. And so if I'm correct, let me know. So that'll be an interesting, conversation in of itself. So let me pull up, and so, okay, I got that up. And before I go any further, just want to do a little promotion real quick. And so, upcoming, I have a conversation with Dr. Kwesi K. Pra, who's a well-known anthropologist originally from Ghana, but who has been living in South Africa since 1980. And he does a lot of work on, the promotion of indigenous languages, cultures and ideas of the like. And, this is a well-known elder for those who are familiar with, continental African scholars. So, but it will not be live. This is going to be pre-recorded. We have a meeting early in the morning tomorrow, and this will be available for those on my Patreon page. And then sometime in the future, it'll be available for the general public. But Patreon members get early access. And so those Patreon members also get access to the presentation of Wakanda Forever, a Chibantu perspective on the famous pose, which is up, and the recent conversation with Dr. Shamarka Keita, as we are talking about the social construct of race and what it is and how you should read literature, espousing to talk about race, and how to read the scientific literature that is using race in the wrong ways. And so that's a very deep conversation. But for the public upcoming, we have Sister Claudette Smith Brown out of New Orleans. She is a genealogist, and she's going to help us, navigate the process and inform us why we should do it in the first place in regards to tracing your own family history and composing it and organizing it for future generations. And so, very deep sister, again, New Orleans in the building, saying for that one. And as I mentioned before, that, I have a Patreon page. And so, you will hear me soliciting, people joining my Patreon page and supporting, because now I have soft started the campaign for fundraising, just different layers of fundraising to complete a documentary film which is going to be called China Into, and subtitled "The Relationship Between Ancient Egypt and Bantu, you know, um, Culture, Religion, Philosophy, the whole nine." And so, it's going to be a very powerful film, and want to uh, allow the public to be a part of this process. And let's start putting some solid information on the airwaves. And so, one way in which you can help and contribute is to join and become a Patreon member. And so what you see here at the bottom is the actual address, which is patreon.com/asarimhotep. So I appreciate all of the people who have already signed up and joined, and those who have contributed and done donations through other mediums, whether it's Cash App or directly through PayPal via the website asarimhotep.com. I very, very, very much appreciated. Every contribution helps. So, I appreciate everything that you have done, and I will continue to keep bringing this information. And we want to do this on a very high scale and a very professional, stylistic level, and, bring about that Black excellence. So with that being said, we can move forward. So remember, again, this is we don't have a number, but it's a call in, a log in show. So if you have something that you want to add and contribute to the conversation, by all means, I'll keep putting the link, in the chat if you want to join the conversation. So, and thank you to D. Hold on, it just kind of blocked out for me. D Centavo is greatly appreciated to you as well. Thank you for your support. And so, excuse me. So, hold on. He says, file them charges. So, I guess we can give a little background. So we know that the Me Too movement has been a movement that has been holding persons accountable for any kind of deviant sexual acts or mistreatment. Has primarily been the movement and role of women, which has been taking it's been getting press, I would say, within more so the last 5 years. And so there has also been some abuses of the popularity of the whole Me Too movement, but that's another conversation in of itself. But the objective is to hold people accountable for their past, sexual or sexually advanced misdeeds, whether this be in the workplace, just private outings, wherever. And so, with that being said, the underlying thought is that, of course, every person has agency over their own body. And, people are disrespecting their agency when, out of the wrong context, they are making sexual advances or going to the extreme, and committing sexual assault. And so, sometimes those sexual assaults can lead to the birth of a child in some instances. And so, it's a very serious topic in of itself. But on the underlying issue of agency and, having a say so in how one is to, navigate and move in this reality in terms of who someone wants to be with and who someone wants to have a child with, and if they want to have a child or not. That is the underlying question of the agency. So we know the story, or we think we know the story of the Bible, which states that Mary was a virgin, and that the Spirit of God came into Mary and made her pregnant, and fathered the father of Jesus, of course, is God, but Mary was espoused or engaged to Joseph. So this begs the question, well, what was Mary thinking? Is there any evidence that she even wanted a child or anything to that nature? And so that's what we'll get into. And so I'm going to play the devil's advocate and be the lawyer for Mary in this situation. And so we want to see, what your thoughts are, concerning this particular subject. So, and Sister Mika says that Joseph never slept with Mary. Now, remember that I was a Hebrew Israelite under what was then called the ISUPK. And we used to argue that Joseph did have sex with Mary and that everybody else is wrong, on the virgin tip. And so, when you look up the word virgin, it is apparently has two meanings. So the first meaning is simply a young woman of marriageable age. And then you have, of course, a woman who has not had any sexual or a person who has not had any sexual intercourse. So so what they'll say is that when it says Mary was a virgin, that is speaking about the first definition and not the second one. But that's a whole different debate. So if we have any Hebrew Israelite scholars in the chat or just listening live and want to chime in and make a different argument, the floor will be yours. So, but in the meantime, we're going to share this screen, and I'm going to go to my Chrome tab, and we're going to go to the Bible Gateway, and we're going to read the, oop, my bad, I got to go back. And I know it's going to be small, so I'm going to increase. Let me go back here, back to this page. So we are in, the New International Version of the Bible that is online. Hold on. What is going on? Hold on. Let me see. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, since I got the touch screen, I could increase the size like so. So it should, let me know if this is a good size that y'all can see and read, or unless y'all just on y'all, on devices and y'all can see this for yourself. I think that's a relatively good size. Y'all let me know in the chat. Cool beans. So I'm just going to go up. So, this is right now I'm in Luke chapter 1. And so the first part of Luke talks about the birth of John the Baptist as it is foretold. And so we're going to skip that, even though it's kind of relevant, because this is, it's supposed to mirror or be correlated with the birth of Jesus itself, and all of that. But we're going to skip all the way down to verse 26 of Luke, chapter 1. So this is the birth of Jesus foretold. So let's read in the Hebrew Israelite voice. It says, in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. So we see here they're introducing the characters in the story. So in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, so that we had to read a little bit before that to understand who Elizabeth was. God sent the angel of Gabriel to Nazareth, to a town in Galilee, to a virgin, and this is ultimately going to be Mary, pledged to be married to a man named Joseph. So she's engaged at this point. They're not married. And so we got to understand that in the biblical tradition, I can't recall if they had any like marriage ceremonies. Like you are married to the person you have sex with. So according to the Bible, a lot of y'all are married to a whole bunch of people. Luckily, I'm still a virgin, so I ain't got to worry about none of that legal marriage stuff according to the Bible. So anyway, the virgin's name was Mary. So now we know her name. The angel went to her and said, greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you. So basically, this is almost like a pimp, I don't want to say the other word, relationship. So, you got chose, I see you, you find favor with me. Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. So she looking like, wait a minute, who are you? Gabriel, claiming to be an angel of the Lord and stuff to this nature, talking all that smooth stuff. But the angel said to her, do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. In other words, you in good standings. You have a good credit score with God up above. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end. How will this be? Mary asked the angel, since I am a virgin. So we know that this isn't the first definition in terms of a woman being of a maritable age. She's saying, I have not had sex. How am I to be pregnant? The angel answered, the Holy Spirit will come on you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you, so that the Holy One to be born will be called the Son of God. Even Elizabeth, your relative, is going to have a child in her old age, and she who was said to be unable to conceive is in her 6th month. For no word from God will ever fail. So I think even the Elizabeth, who is an elder at this point, was also just randomly given a child, in her old age. And so she had been trying in her earlier years, but now she's old and she's just, satisfied with the notion that she's just not going to have any children. So God waits until she's an old woman and then like, boom, I got you, instead of when she was young and able to take care of the children. So anyway, so we see that this is a pattern going on here. And so verse 38, I am the Lord's servant. Mary answered, may your word to me be fulfilled. Then the angel left her. And so there's some clues here that, well, it's some contradictory stuff. So one of the things that we would, as a Hebrew Israelite, make an argument is that in this verse here, verse 32, the Lord God will give him the throne of his father David and will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. And so what he's saying is that, of course, if God, Yahweh, is the father of Jesus, that this has to be something else. They're talking about his lineage of going back to King David. And so the argument is that he's in the lineage of King David, and therefore Joseph is the father, because according to tradition, you go through the male line. And so he couldn't reference David as a father if Joseph wasn't the father of Jesus. But when we see here the conversation is set up in a way that, there's no discussion that Jacob will be the father and y'all will have intercourse. The stress is on Mary being a virgin. And then the Most High and the Holy Spirit comes and messes with her ovaries, and then, she becomes pregnant as a result. So there's no conversation here of her being with Joseph, and Joseph is the particular father. So what is this thing here? Let me go. What is this? Okay, here we go. So now we go to Mary's song, or should I go? It's the birth of John the Baptist, Zechariah song, footnotes. Let me go to the song of Mary. And Mary said, "My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior, for he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him from generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel, remembering da 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 da." Okay, this is a relevant part. And so we're probably going to have to go to chapter 2. Because this is dealing with here the birth of John the Baptist. So we're going to go to part 2. And so let me see what y'all are saying in the comments. Hold on. Y'all not saying y'all in your own world. Yep. Afroasiatic says Mary and Jesus was a sign. Quran corrects the mischief that the European made when they got their hands on the Bible. I doubt that is the case, since you don't have an original Bible for them to know if anything has been changed or not. So that's going to be problematic for anyone arguing that the Quran corrects anything out of the Bible. You would have to have access to an original authenticated Bible to then say what has been changed and what is not authentic. So that's another debate that could be had in the future. And, so now we're going to go to the birth of Jesus. So let me use my touchscreen powers and increase the font. And there we go. So now we're on Luke chapter 2. So we skip John the Baptist's birth from Elizabeth, and we're going now to the birth of Jesus. So in those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house of the line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him. So they're not married, not even in the biblical sense yet, which means they have not had sex and was expecting a child. So we know for a fact that she's pregnant, and Mary and Joseph has not had sex with Mary. They're not married yet. And so, you know, in the Bible, when you have sex, you are married. You have consummated that union. And so this is clearly stating right here that he went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him, meaning they're engaged. So they didn't have the word engaged back in the day, to him, and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born. And she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger." Suddenly, a great company. And so I guess this is supposed to be the compensation for Mary. Since you didn't ask for the baby, and I just went ahead without your permission and put the baby in your stomach, the compensation is that, well, he's going to be a special baby. You know, he's the son of God, and he's going to do all kinds of miracles and stuff. So you get to be great by approximation because you nursed Jesus. And so that's basically what they're saying here, and on and on and on. So suddenly a great company of heavenly hosts appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those whom his favor rests." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." So let's ride, you know, and who got money for gas, you know, so we can go all the way to Bethlehem and see what the angels over there talking about. For those of you from H-Town, you know what they talking about, not talking about, talking about. So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph, and they just automatically knew out of the big old town of Bethlehem exactly what manger they was going to be in. But I guess this is a story, so we good. And the baby who was lying in the manger. When they had seen him, they spread the word concerning that had been told them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherd said to them. And so, you know what's also crazy about this? So the angels already, you know, God and the angels already just went and just stuck a baby in someone who didn't ask for one. But also when they got to the manger in Bethlehem, the angels come to a town and start telling people who don't know Mary and Joseph all their business. So now you got a whole town coming in to visit, you know, and I don't know how many of you, you know, women out there or people out there have children. And, you know, when you are giving birth, your you know, for a male, you know, your queen is not looking the best. She's not feeling the best. So you just don't want the whole town, you know, in your delivery room looking at all your goods because you got the Son of God, you know, coming out of your womb. But that's another story in of itself. So we're going to continue. When they had seen him, they spread the word concerning what had been told to them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to them. But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had heard and seen, which were just as they had been told. On the eighth day, when it was time to circumcise the child, he was named Jesus, the name the angel had given him before he was conceived. And then it actually was like Emmanuel, but that's another whole story in of itself, for that. So we have the story directly, and so we won't go any further on that. So given what we just read, do you all believe that Mary has a valid Me Too case? Because what we just read, I found no indication that she was looking for a child, and that they were planning on, and then we don't get the feelings of Joseph, like what was going through his mind, to find out his virgin wife is pregnant, and then this is just like a good excuse for all the women, who had got pregnant by a side dude. You could be like, this was immaculately conceived. The Lord God came to me in a dream and told me I would be with child, and that you would be raising the next son of God, and all of this other kind of stuff. And so women can use that excuse that it was God that impregnated me, and not my side dude. So what do y'all think in terms of the Me Too charges, brought about in this case? And so, why is this thing acting so slow all of a sudden? Let me get rid of that. Let me stop sharing. Boom. And hold on, I'm looking at the chat over here on the phone, seeing what y'all saying, what y'all talking about. So where was that one? So D says that Joseph was sad. and Althea says absolutely a Me Too case. So I'm trying to see. Black Lion Supreme says in the infancy gospels, baby Jesus told Joseph to watch his mouth. So how would you feel as the father, or as the newly to be father, and your queen, who you have, she was like, you know what, I'm waiting until marriage to have sex with you, and then she comes up pregnant, and what are your thoughts about that? Would y'all stay with a sister and she swore up and down? Now let's qualify that she has not given you any reason to believe that she's lying. She's like, the spirit of Gabriel, of an angel, came to me in my sleep and said, that the spirit of God is going to fall upon me, and then I will be with child. Would you believe her? And would you, if you do, of course, would you stick around and raise the child? So that's a question for the fellas. Let me see. Everything is everything. Said, yep, she do in terms of a case. So it seems to be the consensus. It says the Most High is guilty. And Afroasiatic says that the Quran says the angels cast their pens to see which would have charge of Mary. You'll have to explain that. And again, you know, if you want to join the conversation, how should I say? You should have the link in the chat to join. Sister Lakeisha Dunn is laughing at my title. I was like, wait, what's happening? Ooh, there we go. Let me see what else is everyone saying. The Most High is a Joe Grind. I don't even know what that is. You're going to have to explain that. There may be some regional slang. Let me see. Joseph was mad, confused, disappointed, and sad indeed. Let me see here. Lifetime coming out. Craig Heru says Lifetime's coming out with a special with Mary called Surviving God. It should say Surviving Yahweh. I'm not even sure they called God Yahweh in the New Testament. I don't remember that. Let me see. 42 Tribe says, I had a girlfriend who got pregnant with a side dude. She didn't use the Lord told me I would be with child excuse. We were cool though. I knew she was a sex addict and other word. Well, I assume you didn't stay around and raise the child. 42 Tribes. And then put Gabriel on child support. Now, you know, it would be messed up if we were to find out that Gabriel was actually some real life dude who then slipped something in Mary's drink and then went into her without her permission and got her pregnant and then jetted off. And this is something that he told her in a kind of drunken state and that she remembered and ended up telling Joseph. That would be, you know, a strange plot twist. Let me see. The Son of God, the kid's dad, will be around soon. You'll see him. Don't worry. Let me see. Gideon says it's a foul world they live in. Says nope, don't stick around. Nothing extra. Monica says nope, I can't with you tonight. So is there anyone? So on the nature of the question, does Mary have a valid Me Too claim against God of the Bible? Is there anyone who is listening live who disagrees with that and believes otherwise? And so I'm not here to religion bash or anything to that nature. So you won't have that kind of energy coming from me. Now, if our good brother Unc, you know, was live, you know, he may do that. But, you know, I don't do that. So, you know, don't be afraid to come, you know, saying on and voice your opinion, even if it is opposite of mine. So, but you know, I bring this subject up again because it has to deal with agency. And, you know, you find all throughout the biblical text that there's a lot of stuff done against the will of the person involved that God kind of forced into a situation. And so, you know, one of the more famous cases, of course, is the Pharaoh of ancient Egypt. And so, for those of us who are familiar with that story, we know that it was God that hardened Pharaoh's heart in not letting the people go so he can show the Israelites how powerful he is. But then goes around and punishes the Pharaoh and curses the whole country and stuff to this nature, when by their own admission, it was God that set this whole thing up in the first place. So God essentially set Pharaoh up for failure and then punished him and the people. And then, of course, went on a murder spree to kill the firstborn of these African, males. And so, let me see. Yes, you can join Ramsey or Ramza. So I've been, if you kind of look up, there's a link, a StreamYard link. And I keep posting the same thing. So I just reposting and reposting, but there's a link that you can click and, it will bring you to the back end and you can join the conversation. So for anybody that wants to join the conversation and voice their opinion, and Black Line Supreme, let me see. There we go. Yes, he says he set up Adam and Eve also. And that was my argument last week, that he set Adam and Eve up for failure. And so I will probably do an actual presentation on this to show that the Abrahamic traditions are anti-intellectuals, anti-science. And the first, clue and evidence of this, of course, is the Adam and Eve story. And when you really comb through the Adam and Eve story, you come to discover basically that the intent of God was to make human beings, and I shouldn't say this in absolutes, I should qualify this. The intent of God of the Bible was, according to the mythology, when they made man, to make man basically like one of the other dumb animals. So man was not intended to be intelligent and to be able to think critically or to have any kind of moral sensibilities. That was not the intent, which is why, they gave the commandment to not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But you have to think about this, critically. How can you give a commandment to some dumb animals who don't have the capacity to understand the nature of the charge? In other words, God set them up for failure and then punish them, and then everybody else in the world is born in sin and have to earn value back, by following these commandments and things of that nature. So, the intent of Adam and Eve were just to be dumb animals. And because they ate of this mythical tree of the knowledge of good and evil, of right and wrong, of left and right, they became like the Giberim and the Elohim, the so-called angels or whatnot in the Hebrew tradition. Hold on. Let me see. Sister LaDosha Wright says, isn't that why the former President Jimmy Carter severed ties with the Southern Baptist Convention? I'm not sure. That would be some good research. And what's his name says, Mary know damn well who the father is. It's a setup for all of us, since we're born sinners without ever asking to be here. Exactly. And so this isn't a discussion to bash religion per se. It is to bring up the question of agency and free will. And do you have free will? And so does your tradition, if you adhere to any kind of spiritual tradition, does the language in the text or the oral tradition argue that you have complete free will or that you don't have free will. And so we can ask this of any African tradition as well. And so this is something that I'm going to address in a future Devil's Advocate show on the logic of the Ifa tradition, because it is based on this concept of destiny. And then, that this is your destiny, this is what you're here in charge to do. And then, so there's this kind of soft determinism. And so we're going to break with that and show how that is in many ways contradictory, to things, and why that wasn't thought out very well as well. And so that is a tradition that I, personally adhere to and practice. But y'all know me, nobody escapes scrutiny, even the Yoruba system of Ifa. And so, that's the point of these devil's advocates conversations, is to be able to challenge, the orthodoxy of certain interpretations of, certain ancestral traditions, or just current, traditions and insights into the world or not. So I'm trying to think of another example. Of course, we all know about Jonah and the whale, being forced into, this. And then, of course, we also have to, address the whole Jesus being God's only begotten son. Because when you read about, for example, in what's the chapter or what's the book? I think it's in Genesis 6. See the Genesis 6, I think, yeah, Genesis 6, when they're talking about the Giberim and the Elohim, etc. These are sons of God. And so, you have in the Old Testament actual sons of God, but then you have in the New Testament Jesus being the only begotten son. So how was these other beings who were equivalent to Jesus, the sons of God, but Jesus the only begotten one? But that's another conversation in of itself. And so let me see. It says, how is one free when you need permission to simply travel? Yep. Let me see. Truth be told, is all man-made dogma. And that's the point of all of this, is that you can tell. So this is an actual exercise in literary criticism. So there's certain things that you are able to detect by critically examining the, and reading in between the lines, that'll let if y'all have time to, y'all just got some leisure time to study forensic linguistics, and I may do a presentation one day on forensic linguistics. So forensic linguistics is basically just how it sounds. You're using the tools of forensics to kind of ascertain, to see, who has written what. And for example, they use this to be able to tell, for example, if a text is written by the same person. Because when a person writes, there's it's just like how everybody has an individual thumbprint or just fingerprint in general, or, or way of speaking. Like, everybody has their own way of writing. And so in speaking, and so you can tell who is who by the nature of how they write, if you have enough writing samples of someone. And so you can tell in between the lines. And this is where Afrocentricity comes in, because Afrocentricity has some intellectual tools to be able to ascertain the position and the location of the writer. And so you can get some deeper insights in terms of their mentality based on what they write in the particular text. And so using that, we can we can ascertain whether somebody was inspired by God or if this is something based on their imagination and the perspective of a particular human being. And so you get this, for example, and I mention this all the time, when they're talking about the whole creation in Genesis 1. Everything is from the perspective of someone who is living on earth, not someone who exists outside of the earth and is telling the story of how they created the thing, because there's no days and nights in outer space. You know, you can't have a day. A day is the result of the earth spinning on its axis, you know, at a particular speed and time. And then, you know, it's always days somewhere on earth because it's spinning on its axis and the sun is the center of the solar system. And so, you know, the way that they describe, you know, creation as being this kind of vault, you know, and the stars actually like being holes in the vault, you know, and the earth being flat, etc. Like these are all indications that some human beings who are not knowledgeable about, you know, the earth and outer space and what stars are, and you know where this mythical light came from before the stars and the sun, like what they're, you know, it's it's clear that this was not written by somebody who was dictating notes from God directly. And so these are the kinds of things that we have to look at when we're reading these stories so that we don't get caught up in believing that these are real. They're just here to try to explain some things, not necessarily be history books and or scientific treaties of things. So let me see what else is y'all saying. Is Gabriel the same entity who nearly squeezes the life out of Muhammad? You know, hey, so you know, somebody from the Islamic tradition is going to have to come in and vouch for that. So Ramza says, bottom line, Christianity is a slave doctrine created by smart warlords who wanted the entire globe. A brilliant format. Same thing with Islam. It is basically a mafia thing, and that's something that I argue more eloquently in another context. BL Jonah was like, I'm bouncing, like an abused wife running from his crazy husband. And indeed, someone says it's the God of the gaps. Have a fill in the blank. Just put in God as your answer, basically. Let me see. These people believe that the sun and the moon were in the sky. Yeah, again, remember it's a vault, like it's a dome over the earth, and then the universe and everything is contained in the dome, and the stars are just kind of like, so that's where they get the whole lights thing. So what they envision is that there was, you know, there was darkness, and then there was this great light, and then this created this dome which created this sky and whatnot, and at night you're basically poking holes into the sky, so that initial light that was talked about before the sun was created, you know, is what is shining through as the stars. And then, you know, in the daytime the sun rises and then it disappears at night, and then out comes the stars and things. So, you know, this again is somebody who clearly does not understand how the universe works and understand gravity. And matter of fact, and they argue that the moon gives off light. So we know for a fact that if this was the God of creation, God knows for a fact that the moon does not give light, it reflects light like any other surface or substance that is, you know, in the path of light directly from the sun. And so this is a clue that this was not written by, you know, someone who had direct access to God. Yes, the earth is tilted on the ecliptic rotation. Exactly. Yep, it's a snow globe. Matter of fact, let me, because they people have done some good pictures of of creation as given in the Bible. Let me say biblical creation. Let me search images. Hold on, and then I will share the screen once I find a good. See, on my other computer, I know I have like the images saved. Bible, Earth, Dome. Here we go. So hold on. Is that big enough? So I want to make sure that I have a good size image. That's not big enough. Let me go back there. So people don't understand that God created the flat. So all your flat earthers are basically Christians. Hold on 1 second. Excuse me for gotta bear with me as I'm trying to find this image. And for some reason my computer's acting awfully slow today. And don't know what is going on here. Let me just try to find that image. This one's not pulling up. Let me see. See, Iran, Aztecs. See the difference. Philighton Tis says, I don't think they meant anything different than the ancient Egyptians with Nut looking like a dome over Geb. They just worded it as being literal in their interpretation. That's possible, but we also got to remember that for the ancient Egyptians, the earth was round. And so they had, an idea of the roundness, of the earth. So let me just save that image. Put it in my temp folder. Booyah. I kind of like this image too. How big is that? This may be good too. I'm gonna save this. And boom. Then I'm gonna share my screen and show y'all, how the Bible envisioned the creation of Earth and the universe. Application window. Boom. Share. So I'm gonna wait till the screen pops up. I don't see. Okay, why isn't it sharing? Do y'all see? Okay. Again, it's acting slow for some reason. And Kemet knew about the speed of light as well at Ramza. So I don't know if y'all can see that. So you can see, like, you'll see several of these, kind of images as they described it. So again, everything is existing in these waters. And so this not a round earth, it's a flat earth. And then underground is Sheol, or, kind of the hells or the underworld, so to speak. And, you have this vault, the firmament, that separates the waters, the great waters from the lesser waters in terms of the sky. So inside the firmament is the sky. And so you have the sun inside the firmament, and then you have the stars inside the firmament, and then mountains, earth, sea, etc., etc. And so you have a flat earth dome type of representation. And so this is, again, very problematic when talking about the earth and the creation. So this lets us know, again, that if there is a God out there and he had a relationship with the Hebrews, this God, we can probably make an argument that it was Satan who told them this story and threw them off, because this has no representation in reality. This is a representation of how it would look to a lay person, 2000 plus years ago, who had no understanding of science and how it works. So this is what you see, is what you would expect to see from somebody who, on earth, who had a limited knowledge of nature and how things actually were, if they wanted to tell the story. And so this is one of the things that, I like to get across and people to understand, is that all religions, all the stories there, are just created by men and women. And we should not take them to be, representations of reality in any stretch or form, at least to the deepest detail. They may reflect some aspects of reality, but we should not, argue that they are in fact reality itself. So let me still live on this other page here. So nobody wants to join the conversation. And let me see. When you go back to the first principles, all the earlier systems were based on tracking movements of planets and stars. So why wouldn't we go back and try and understand why they were observing it? Well, they were observing it for several reasons. Some people were farmers. Some people just traveled. And so, they didn't have GPS then in cell phones. So you would track the stars to know which way you're going when you're traveling. And you would also keep mind, like what the ancient Egyptians would do, would keep track of stars so that they would know when the annual floods would come about, in terms of seasons. So it lets you know, okay, this star is in this position now, so this is the season that's coming up, and we got to prepare for it. So we know the reasons why they kept track of all that stuff. Let me see. I don't blame them. Kevin was there. Kevin was like another TV. No, I want you. In nature, everyone doesn't make it. Yeah. So there doesn't seem to be any opposition. So from the consensus, it appears that Mary does have a case, and that she was given a child, without her consent and will, and then that Joseph, was kind of forced to adopt a child that wasn't his. And then, we could have went further on in the text when they're trying to justify the lineage of Jesus. He has actually two lineages, and it's interesting that there are two women in the line of Jesus. And this is very significant because, again, the lineage goes through the men. They always track it through the men in the Bible. And so, there's a lot of disagreement and contradictions when it comes to that. And then we all, should know that Adam didn't exist. And so the biblical tradition traces Jesus' lineage all the way back to Adam. And so that should let you know, like, if we were to take that seriously and take it literally, since we know for a fact that Adam and Eve did not exist, Jesus could not exist as well. And so, but that's a conversation for another time. I'm not here to debate on the historicity of Jesus of Nazareth. Maybe that is something that Brother Garfield would want to engage in. But with that said, I have nothing else for the night. And since y'all don't want to converse, I'm going to end this show and just want to remind everyone to be on the lookout again for next Tuesday. We have sister, and it's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern time, Sister Claudette Smith Brown, who's a genealogist, who's going to show us how to, trace our roots as far as we can, especially those of African descent here in the United States, but more so how to start gathering some stuff so that you can make it easier on your descendants to understand and know their history. So that'll be on next Tuesday. And I'll be recording tomorrow the interview with Kwesi K. Pra, PhD. And for those who are members of my Patreon, you will get first access, to that. So I encourage everyone, again, if you want to financially support the channel and or you want to contribute to the upcoming documentary film, I'm currently doing my first run of financing, and so we're trying to raise $3,500 for the first initial aspects or the groundwork for the documentary film, and to create a proof of concept. And then we will use the proof of concept. I'm working on the website and stuff now. This would allow, saying us to, get a little bit more spoofed and organized. And then we'll start doing the series. So yesterday I did a show on the details of the documentary. So if you want to know like where everything's going, what are the plans for the film and all of that, just check out the conversation that I had on yesterday on this channel. So please like and share. And I appreciate all of you for joining this conversation. And so with that said, y'all have a blessed night and stay out of these COVID streets and wash your hands and sanitize. All right, peace.